This is a 2023 Chevy Traverse LT cloth front wheel drive. As you can probably tell, this is a 3-row midsize SUV. In fact, it's the largest 3-row midsize SUV in its class. And today, I'm gonna show you why this is probably the best midsize SUV you can buy for the money. Anyway, since I didn't really write a script for this review, there's no backstory on Chevy, which honestly, I don't really feel like I need to even mention because people probably already know. So let's just get into a tour of the Chevy Traverse. Up front, up here, you got your DRLs and turn signals. Down here are your actual headlights. You got your nice Chevy bow tie emblem with your chrome, partially chromed out grille. Overall, this front end is very simple, but it is very sharp. And I do like that these kind of look like a little crystal in the headlights, which are pretty nice. But I'm glad that they made the turn signals very visible, which in some cars they kind of aren't. It's a pretty simple design. You just got projector, low high beam here, turn signal, DRL, and that's it. Popping the hood, you will find, if I can find the hood latch, Chevrolet's 3.6 liter V6 mated to a ZF 9-speed automatic transmission going to just the front wheels on this particular model because there's no all-wheel drive. Although you can get all-wheel drive if you would like it. Makes 310 horsepower. I don't remember how much torque. I'll throw it up on screen. I think it's around 280 pound-feet, if I'm not mistaken. And you get pretty decent gas mileage. You get around 18 in the city and 27 on the highway, which is pretty decent. So we're done filling up 16 gallons. And I think we were around an eighth of a tank, so it might be a little less than 20-gallon tank. But yeah, you're still gonna get pretty decent highway range. But yeah, this powertrain has been around for actually a while. It was in the previous gen Traverse from around 2008 till now. So it's been around for a while. The early ones did have problems with the timing chain, but these later ones have had that fixed. It's not gonna be as reliable as a Honda, but it's gonna be pretty decent. And I suspect that the ZF transmission will hold up pretty well because that's typically what ZF transmissions do. Unlike the Chrysler 9-speed automatics, which those I've heard are not very good when it comes to reliability. Also, this thing is actually a lot quicker than you would think, considering it's front-wheel drive. The thing with the Traverse is that there is a crap ton of wheel spin because it's 310 horsepower going to just the front wheels. So you get a lot of wheel spin off the line, which makes it a little slower, but it still has plenty of pull on the highway. Moving down to the wheels, you have your 18-inch silver and dark gray alloy wheels. These are wrapped in a set of Bridgestone tires that are 255/65 R18s. Those are all around, so they are not a staggered setup, so you can't actually rotate your tires. And these are just a basic all-season tire. Not much to say about them. In the mirror, you got a little turn signal up here. Before we hop inside, this is your key fob. Lock, unlock, you got your remote start function. Double tap for the liftgate. Double tap again, and you can close the liftgate, and then you have your panic button. Yeah, pretty simple key fob. You also have a built-in key in the key fob, so if the key fob battery dies, you can still get into your Chevy. You do have keyless entry on all doors, except it's not the kind where you can just pull on the door handle unlock. You just have to push this button, but it still works. Hopping into the front of the Traverse, you find these actually pretty durable feeling cloth seats, which are heated. You have 8-way power adjustable on the driver's side, although you only, I believe, have it's either 4 or 6-way power adjustable, not power, it's manual on the passenger side. So you have to throw your weight around to adjust the seat, but it's fine. At least the driver's side is power and has power lumbar. You have your, I want to say it's almost 3.5-inch TFT display in the gauge cluster, but you still have an analog speedo and analog tach and analog fuel gauge. In the center, you got a 8-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. In the console, you have a regular shifter, which I much prefer because the GMC Acadia does not have a regular shifter. You got 2 cup holders, your drive mode dial, auto start stop, your electronic parking brake. Up here, you got your wireless charger, which is pretty nice. In the door bins, you have your liftgate button, and you can actually change it to open all the way, 3/4 of the way, or you can turn it off. And you have some reasonably sized door bins to fit some water bottles in there. And on the door, you have your mirror selection and your one-touch up and down driver window, and the rest are all regular. And your door locks are up by the door release. Your steering wheel is a manual tilting and telescoping unit, which is pretty easy to use. You have a actually pretty large center console with a light on the inside. Pretty nice. And your center screen can do this. and it reveals a hidden storage compartment. Kind of an interesting feature. I don't know why it really exists, but it's kind of cool that it has that. Pretty simple up here. And what I like is that there are basically physical buttons for everything that you need to access, except for the traction control, which is in the gauge cluster. Seems a little weird. And since it's a brand new car, we get to do this. Climbing into the back seats. First off, there is a ton of room in the second row. There's an oddly large amount of headroom. For context, I'm about 6 feet tall, and there is an unusually large amount of headroom in this car. It's like they went into Adobe Photoshop and just stretched it upwards, and it just has a weirdly large amount of headroom. I don't know why it has this much headroom. It's almost too much. But the seats do slide forward and back on rails to give this third row more or less room, or give the second row passengers more room, and you can recline the seats with this lever right here. They don't recline all that much, but they do recline a little bit. On the back of the front seats, you do have storage pockets, and on the back of the console, you have your climate controls. It's just a single zone climate with an auto function, 2 USB-A ports, some storage down here. You do have air vents on the roof, which I much prefer because it actually allows way more air to actually get to the passengers. You have an Oh Shiznit handle. In the door panel, you have a cup holder built in to store your drinks. Pretty useful for kids, and you actually do have a lower cup holder in the door bin itself to put another bottle. In the back, you actually do have a lot of oh my god, I can't talk. A lot of amenities, and you have an armrest, so you can rest your arm and be chauffeured around while your mom drives you to soccer practice. Now, there are multiple ways to actually access the third row. Well, for one, you can just walk in between the center seats because this particular car has captain's chairs, but let's say if you have an older person and they can't really go between the center seats, at least on the driver's side, you can fold this seat like this, but then you might be like, wait, this doesn't really help. You can't really get into the back. That's one thing I find annoying about the Traverse. If you actually want to move the seat forward, you can only do that on the passenger side. So let's go over there and demonstrate how that works. Okay, I'm over here on the passenger side. Oh, would you look at that? There's a lever. Pull the lever, and the seat will slide forward, and then you can actually climb into the third row. Speaking of the third row, climbing back here is actually pretty easy. Just fold that seat forward, and you have plenty of access to the third row, which you actually do have 3 seats back here. This is a 7-seater car, not a 6-seater, so you can put 3 people in this rear bench, and your third seat belt is on the roof. That's kind of common in older SUVs, but I didn't think this would have it. Anyway, speaking of comfort back here, you have a cup holder, some cubbies up here, a USB port on either side to charge your devices. You got a little window back here to look out of, air vents up here, and some more dome lights. And once I put the seat back, there is just about enough room for me to sit back here, although I could slide the seat forward. I think it's in its furthest back point right now, but I can still fit back here, although my knees are up against the seat. But you can always slide this front seat forward and get more space. And then just push this little lever, push the seat forward, and then I can climb out. On the side, on the driver's side, just pop this open. This is your capless fuel filler for your 20-gallon or 20-ish gallon fuel tank. At the back, you got your combined turn signal and stop lamp, which I don't like. It's not very good for safety. Your reverse light, which is super annoying because in GM products, when you lock it, I don't know how to demonstrate this, but sometimes when you lock the car, the reverse lights come on. I guess it's to walk you home at night, but sometimes these will stay on when you lock the car. I don't know why, but turn signals, brake lights, third brake light up here. You got your rear wiper, your Traverse badge, and it's pretty simple. And down below, you actually have some real decent looking exhaust tips. You have a twin exhaust in this car. Didn't expect that, but this one is equipped with the tow package. Yeah, you can tow with your Traverse, and I don't know if this is for the all-wheel drive cars only, but you can tow up to 5,000 pounds with your Traverse. Not bad. And so you would just pop off this cover to expose a tow hitch, and then I believe this cover is for the trailer lights, if I'm not mistaken. Sound test. And finally, we're at the back, which you do have a power tailgate. You can open it on the key. You can use the button on the interior. You can open it, I believe, from the phone app also, but you can just press this button right here and it'll automatically open up. Once you open it up, you'll find a decent cargo area. You have tie downs on the side, some little slots, which I would presume would be for a cargo cover, although this one doesn't appear to have it. And if you want to fold the third row down, one pull on the strap, pull and push, and then that will fold the third row. You also appear to have a fuse box back here for something. Don't know exactly what, but there is a fuse box back here. Over on this side, you do have a cigarette lighter, although there is no 110 volt or 120 volt outlets in this car. I guess I'll forgive it because it's just the LT trim, but I would like to see some power outlets in a vehicle like this. Underneath the floor, you have a tub, and what looks like can actually be removed somehow. I think if you unscrew these knobs here, then this whole thing will just pop out of here. And I believe the spare tire is underneath this. Yeah, so the spare tire is underneath this tray. I'm not gonna take it out all the way, but that's where you would get to the spare tire if you needed it. There's also grocery bag hooks in here. I didn't notice that until just now. I gotta screw these back down. But it's good to know that the Traverse does have a spare tire and you don't have to go under the car to access it, so I guess that's nice. And then once you're done in the cargo area, just push the button on the top of the tailgate and it'll electronically close for you. I like that it doesn't beep 1,000 times like some cars do. It's Toyota. Okay, that's enough with the tour of the car. It's a pretty simple car. Let's talk styling and price. First off, the styling. First off, this paint color is beautiful. I love it. It's called iridescent white, I believe. And it's different from Summit White because it has different hues built in. So it's like this beautiful little pearl color, and it actually really suits this car and it looks pretty sharp. And generally the whole design is pretty non-offensive, but it is pretty like stylish and it looks sharp is how I would describe it. As all Chevys do, they all have the similar design, but this Traverse really does look sharp, but it's not over the top and it doesn't stand out too much like something like the Rivian R1S or even something like the Kia Telluride stands out a little more. This is meant to just look good, but not stand out. As far as the price point goes, the Traverse LS, which is the base model, starts at around $35,000 before tax, title, and license. This version that we are talking about right here, the LT Cloth front wheel drive with the tech package, MSRPs for around $41,000. However, we didn't actually pay $41,000 for it. We paid $39,000 out the door because Friendly Chevrolet that was selling it to us had a $5,500 rebate. So the MSRP on this car was more realistically around $36,000. So then once we were out the door with tax and everything, it was around 39 grand. And for this car, 39 grand is a pretty decent price. And honestly, you get a pretty decent amount of car for 39 grand. But that's enough of the tour. Let's just get into some quirks and features of the Chevy Traverse LT Cloth. So Chevys even come with an app on your phone that you can use to you can lock the car with the app. If I hold down, may take a bit, but it should lock the car from the app. There we go, I heard it lock. There we go, it says locked. You can sound and stop the alarm. You can view more commands, like you can flash the headlights. Hold it down. It should flash the lights. Yeah, there you go. Flashing the turn signals, and you can hold it down to stop it. And you can even actually remote start from the app, so if I hold down, you can start it from the app. So basically everything that you can do on the key fob, you can do with just the phone app. A pretty useful feature. Now, it's not the quickest app for a car, but it's fast enough to where you're not going to be waiting more than like 15 seconds for it to perform an action. So that's pretty useful. And then I can also stop the car from here, I think. Yeah, here we go, turn vehicle off. There we go. It just turned off. One thing I find interesting is that the windshield wiper stalk is backwards. It's down for the mist and then it's up to turn it on, which is backwards from what most cars are. Usually it's down to turn it on, and like our previous car, a Hyundai Elantra, which we still own, you push down to turn on the wipers, whereas this is up. It's kind of backwards if you ask me. I showed this before, but it's still kind of amusing. Just the fact that this moves up like that is still kind of amusing. There is no way to adjust the rear climate zone with the physical buttons. There is a way to do it through the infotainment, but you can't use these buttons to adjust the rear. So there's no like rear button that like toggles these to make these the rear controls. It just doesn't do that. I don't know why though. but you just have to go through the screen, which isn't a huge deal, but it'd just be nice to have it down here. Another interesting feature is you actually have profiles in here, which I believe save your seat settings and your car settings inside the infotainment. I know Teslas have this feature, but in something of this price point, I was not expecting it, and it's actually a nice thing to see. You do have a built-in Wi-Fi hotspot, so you can actually connect your devices into the Wi-Fi hotspot, and that is super useful in a 3-row SUV. I do like that the temperature the temperature selection is inside the dial. Saves a lot of space, and it actually looks pretty nice. There is a little Chevy bow tie on the shifter. Inside the center console lid, there's a little clip to store thingies on, like papers and different things to clip in there. I'm assuming you'd probably want to use it for a pen, but you can use it for whatever you'd like. Like I said earlier in the tour, there's no button to turn off traction control. So to turn it off, you have to go into your vehicle settings in the gauge pod, select traction and stability, and then you can turn off your traction control. One thing I find interesting is that if you pop the trunk, it has the picture of the pre-facelift Traverse on it. So basically the 2018 to 2021 Traverse is on there. I find that kind of interesting. They didn't bother to update the photo, which is funny. And of course, like every Chevy, you have OnStar. So you can like call OnStar and do all your data stuff. Like, what is this data? Is that like your Wi-Fi hotspot gigabytes or something? Another thing that I find interesting is that you can actually change the volume of the chimes. So there's like the default, but then if I like max this out and then push the button, then it's really loud. You can change the chime volume. So a cool feature with Chevys that involves the key is that if you lock it and then hold down the lock button, I believe it will drop the windows, or is it the unlock button? Yeah, there you go. Hold down the unlock button and it'll lower all the windows. So that's a feature that I haven't seen on really any other car apart from like Teslas with the app. Although I don't think you can roll the windows back up with the key fob. Yeah, I believe it's just the windows down, but you can basically just roll them down from the key fob, which is a useful feature in the summertime if you need to air out your car for whatever reason. I find an interesting feature is that there is a dedicated timer that's not like attached to a trip or anything. It's just a timer. So it's like, oh, you want to track your lap times in your Traverse, you could start the timer. Also, one thing is that it has like a navigation tab, but there's like no actual navigation. And if you just like click home, then it just calls OnStar or something like that. I don't know how OnStar really works, but I would just plug my phone in and use Apple CarPlay. It's way easier to do that. Okay, I just discovered this, but if you go to this apps tab, you can actually download apps to the car. I didn't know this. You can download Spotify to the infotainment screen. That is such a clutch feature. And like, Teslas don't even allow you to download apps, yet this does. So that is actually a useful feature. I mean, yeah, there's only really a handful of them, but there's at least an option to do it. And then, like, there's weather, like a weather app on here. Like, you can install this. You can install, like, Spotify, Amazon Alexa. There's a lot of useful apps in here. Oh, like, immediately when I said that, it just popped up. There we go. So, yes, allow. You can just install apps onto your infotainment. That's such a useful feature. And I know cars with the Android Automotive have this, but I don't think this is Android Automotive. Someone can correct me on that, but I don't think this car is Android Automotive, but you can just download apps. One thing I find interesting about the headrest is that the metal pole part isn't attached to the headrest. This is attached to the seat, but the headrest is on top of the metal poles, which is usually backwards, because from what I remember, usually those poles come out to break the window in case of an accident, but this is not like that. It seems a little interesting. One thing I just now noticed is to adjust the brightness of the gauges, you have to pop this little switch out and then it pops out and then you can actually twist it. So it like secures it, which is interesting. One thing that I don't really see on any other cars is that the start stop button actually has a light on it. So green means the engine's on, and then amber means it's on like accessory mode. And so I haven't really seen any other car other than the Traverse that has the two separate LEDs. Also, another thing I've not really seen in any other cars is that the tachometer has a section called auto stop, and that's where the needle would go when it's doing auto start stop. But usually in most cars, it just goes to 0, but this doesn't actually have like an indicated 0. So it just kind of goes to that middle section and then it goes to off. I don't think I've seen that in any other car. I mean, it's not that interesting. It's just that I haven't really seen it anywhere else other than in the Traverse. It's nice that you actually still have an aux port in this car. I don't think there's not that many new cars that still have an aux jack, but it's nice that it has it. But no USB-C. I mean, I guess this car did come out in 2018, this generation of Traverse did, but it'd be nice to have some USB-Cs in here. It's USB-A only, and it's kind of annoying not having USB-C. Also, if you want to move stuff around on your home screen, you can just like drag it, and then you can like, oh, you can delete it. Yeah, you can delete Amazon. Or you can like, oh, you can delete rear climate thingy or whatever. Also in the camera, you can open, for one, you can open the camera from here, but you can also do like the parking lines, but you can do it the trailer, or you can zoom into the ball hitch. So when you're connecting the trailer, I honestly don't know if that's tied to the trailer package that this car has, or if it's on all Traverses, if it has this little magnifying button. One thing I like about the Traverse is that the volume and preset switches are on the back of the steering wheel. So you just press them with your fingers, and you can switch between radio stations and volume on the back of the steering wheel, which saves space on the front. So yeah, even if the Traverse doesn't have built-in navigation, you can just download an app navigation. I mean, it's not Google Maps, it's Mapbox, but it's still not bad at all. Another fantastic feature of the Chevy Traverse is if you open the rear door and you turn it off, it says, reminder to look in rear seat, which I guess it assumes that you put a child back there. Also, there is a light in the tailgate, so it actually will illuminate the ground at night, so you can actually see what you're doing. One nice thing is that if you have the electronic parking brake set, you can just get into drive, and then once you hit the gas, it'll actually automatically release. Another nice feature is you have built-in home link to open up your garage door from inside the car. So inside the infotainment screen, you can go to a tab called Teen Driver, and you actually have to set up a PIN. But once you do, Teen Driver PIN successfully sent, and you have this whole Teen Driver screen. Review a report card, which literally tells you the maximum speed they went and like when they went wide open throttle, or like when did the traction control kick in. There's a lot of different things in here, and you can manage different settings. So you can set the speed limit warning to like 60, so if they go over 60, it's like, hey, don't do that. Or like an audio, you can set up like a volume limit on the thingy. Yeah, there is a lot. GM does a lot of different things for Teen Driver settings, and I think that's kind of a good thing, just because it allows the parents to see what the kids are doing in the vehicle. One interesting feature of the Traverse is that there is it's not a head-up display, but there's a little light in the dash. I don't know if you can see it. It's right about there, but it shines up onto the windshield, and supposedly when it detects like something in front of the car, it'll like light up that light and beep at you. I haven't seen it in person, but my mom told me about it, and it happened to her, and I'm like, oh yeah, there is a light up there. And so that's a little interesting. I haven't seen that on any other car, at least not ones without a head-up display, which this one doesn't have a head-up display, like I said, but it has that little light on the dash. Okay, those are some quirks and features of the Chevy Traverse, which a lot of them aren't really that quirky, to be honest, but this car is so normal, I had to find some interesting things to say about it. But let's get it out on the road and see how it drives. So, driving the 23 Traverse, how does it drive? Well, frankly, it drives how you would expect a midsize SUV to drive. It sits up high, the ride is comfortable, powertrain's pretty smooth, the transmission shifts pretty smoothly, it's not aggressive or anything. But then again, it's not exactly slow because of that 310 horsepower under the hood, so it gets out of its way pretty decently. It's pretty just average, I would say. Although, when you're trying to accelerate from a stop, you get a lot of wheel spin because it's front-wheel drive bias. Well, this one's front-wheel drive only, but the all-wheel drive ones are still front-wheel drive bias. Yeah, that's plenty of power for this size of car. I mean, out on the highway, it's pretty stable. There's not a lot of wind noise. It's fairly damped. The suspension is definitely cushy enough. Like just doing these small little undulations, you don't really feel them that much, which is very good for a car that's meant to haul passengers around. Most cars do drive fine on the highway because you're just not doing stop and go. The main challenge for gas vehicles, I feel like, is the city driving because of the transmission shifting, and this with its 9 speeds is perfectly adequate. You can tell Chevy's put a lot of thought into how this powertrain goes with the vehicle. And so that's a thorough review of the 2023 Chevy Traverse LT Cloth. Front-wheel drive. Probably the best midsize SUV you can buy for the money. Yes, there are better midsize SUVs, but this is the best value. It's gonna hold up the best. The interior materials are more durable, and yeah, they're not the nicest in its class. For example, Kia and Hyundai have way nicer interiors for a similar price point, but if you want the durability, this is definitely what you want over those Hyundai Kias, because those have, I think the Kia has something like a suede headliner. Like, what were they thinking? That's going to get destroyed if you have anyone under the age of 10 inside the car. But the Traverse interior is durable. And another thing to mention, it's the biggest car in its class. It's 206 inches long. Most of the other cars in its class, Ford Explorer, Kia Telluride, Hyundai Palisade, Toyota Highlander, Honda Pilot, they are all 200 inches long or less. This is 206 inches long, like I said earlier. So it's by far the biggest. It has the most room on the inside, it has the most cargo space. It's the spacioust? Most spacious. And the engine. This has, in my opinion, the best engine. It's one of the most powerful in its class. It's more powerful than Hyundai, Kia, Ford, Toyota, and I believe Honda. I'm pretty sure it's more powerful than Honda. And it has a good transmission. Its 9-speed has proven itself to be a pretty reliable transmission. And this whole car in itself has been proven to be decently reliable for what it is, considering that it's a Chevy. And what sucks is that the 24 Traverse is getting rid of this awesome V6 and 9-speed automatic for a 2.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder and a 8 or 10-speed automatic. All I know is it's not 9, but it's 8 or 10. I don't remember how much. But anyway, if you're gonna buy a midsize SUV, look at the Traverse. It's the easiest one to recommend, in my opinion. It gets decent gas mileage, it has great space, decent technology for the price, and it just drives really nicely for what it is, that is. But yeah, that's a thorough review of the Chevy Traverse LT Cloth. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe. See you all next time.